All right, well, good evening. My name is Dale Stewart, and I am glad to be here. It was 18 years ago in October that my wife and 3 daughters at the time moved from Michigan. I was working at a furniture company, a manufacturing company in Michigan, and moved out here to Montana. We moved just south of Dillon, about 30 miles, to become the director of the Clark Canyon Bible Camp there. And so I have enjoyed my time there, still direct that camp today. Turned that into a year-round camping facility. Over the 18 years, I've enjoyed getting involved in a lot of different service areas around the county, and just enjoy getting to meet people and help them out any way I can. So a few things, I come into the school. I was telling somebody earlier, I was the coach of the Lady Lima Bears basketball team, and so came to Twin Bridges and never won a basketball game here. Although we lost by 1 point on a last-second shot by Alexis Sandro. So I still don't like that girl, but I'm sure she's a lovely young lady. But we had a good time. I love coaching. I love getting involved in the community. Became an EMT down in Lima. Joined the fire department there. Drove the school bus for a number of years. Was on the school board down in Lima for 2 terms. And tried to help out the school there, and became familiar with small rural schools. I grew up in Detroit, and so it's a little bit different here, but learned the struggles that your school and Lima School and the rural community have to face every single year, every single day. So enjoyed my time there. Recently, 4 years ago, have developed the chaplaincy program for the Beaverhead County Sheriff's Department. I serve as the chaplain there, and just recently added 2 assistant chaplains there to help in the detention center. I also serve as a reserve police officer with the city of Dillon, and so I just enjoy it. I've pastored 3 churches. And that means either they're taking an offering or my time is up. So.
I told you Pat was the most powerful person. So maybe what we'll do, just so we don't get you offsided, Pat can just give a light going when you're getting close, and then you'll know you have but she'll really gong you if you go over. Next we have Jeff Wellborn.
Thanks, Frank. In the interest of disclosure, I'm actually not the incumbent in this race. It's an open seat. I have, however, served 4 terms in the House, so I do bring experience to the job, but or to the race, but I don't bring any incumbency. So I just wanted to point that out, and I will take credit for putting 3/4 of an inch of rain in every gauge this evening in the valley. So. No, I am Jeff Wellborn. I've served the last of my 4 terms in the House, and now I'm in the middle of my first run at this Senate seat in District 36. A little bit about myself. Briefly, I grew up south of Dillon on a cattle ranch. Spent my first 18 years there, moved away, went to college. Bought a couple of different business interests around Montana, and got back as quickly as I could about 15 years ago. My personal and professional life, I've worked for wages before, and I've also employed, I owned a business one time that I employed about 25 or 27 people in the peak of our season, so I do have the experience signing both sides of a paycheck. I want to talk a little bit about my campaign. My campaign is about my track record. It's one focused based on jobs and the economy, putting people to work. A little bit about my history in the House of Representatives. I chaired the committee that brought what I call a lot better wolf reform to both cattle producers, livestock producers, and wildlife managers. It's probably not everything that everybody wanted, but it was a heck of a lot more than we had before. Also on work comp reform, we passed a bill 2 sessions ago that I was part of the sponsorship in getting that through the House, and we took ourselves from basically at the bottom of the pack in this country to closer to the middle. It still isn't where I would like to see it for what work comp rates are costing employers, but it's a heck of a lot better than what we had before, and those kind of things have to be done incrementally. So anyway, looking forward to a robust discussion.
Okay.
So they're jurying some questions back there and they'll bring them up, but we've developed a few for the House Senate. So the first question would be, and we're gonna start with you, and we'll alternate back and forth that way. What would be one area that you would look at making government smaller? That's a concept.
Well, I think there's a lot of areas that we can look at making government smaller. The problem is with the state budget, about 80-some% of that budget goes for corrections, education, and health and human services. So if you really want to make meaningful cuts or you know, noticeable cuts, I mean, then you got to start having discussions like, do we you know, kick, you know, grandma out of the nursing home and cut her medication off, or do we start emptying our prisons and putting convicts back on the street? Do we do less of a job educating our kids? I mean, I think we can do trim in some areas like that, but the places that are easier to cut are the places that are less noticeable, like in like the different departments, transportation and commerce, and some of those you can actually make more meaningful cuts, or you can take larger cuts, but they don't make as big of an impact on the budget. But I do think, you know, 2 sessions ago we were able to cut a fair amount out of it. In the 11th session we cut. I served with Representative Wagner at the time, and we cut, I think, 11% general spending, which was the most that had been done in the past 25 years. But with inflationary increases and stuff, it's been a little harder to do that since. But I mean, it's a tough, you know, it's somebody's going to get their ox gored, and that's when you have people that come to the Capitol that don't like that either. So you just gotta make some tough decisions.
Prioritize.
Same question.
Same question, yes. The question is, you want me to read it again?
No, how to make government smaller, or what would I?
Yeah.
Okay. I would look at it a little bit different. Is try to get as much local control on as many things as possible, and I don't think we have to have everything on a state level. Let's bring control back to the local level. You know, serving on the school board in Lima would be nice, and in the school board here, make a lot of decisions for ourselves here. What's good for our kids? What's good for our communities? What are our resources that we have? And so that's one area. If we just bring the focus back to what can we do as a local community and govern ourselves, and I think that would by nature, you know, shrink the government on a state level and a federal level as well. And so as we do more for ourselves, the environment is created where we have the capacity to do more for ourselves on the local level, then we wouldn't need to have as much reliance on the state level. So that's the way I would like to look at it, is just bring local control back to as many areas as we can.
Okay. Still waiting for some questions, but I guess a good general question is, what do you consider to be the most important issues facing our state in the upcoming sessions? And what would you have to be solutions to those? That's a broad topic.
That's a big question.
It's a big question, and maybe just pick the highlights, the top ones.
Okay.
What's the top
Well,
3?
Yeah, I would say talking to folks and hearing things. Obviously, the budget's a big one. The economy, both the state budget and local budgets as well. How can we bring jobs? How can we bring a better economy down to our paychecks? And that's a big one. And so that encompasses a lot of things. And so on an individual basis, how do we bring business here? How do we bring opportunity here for us that maybe want to start businesses or have businesses? How can we be more prosperous in that? What does that take to remove burdensome regulations that we can make a bigger paycheck? And on the state side is how can we bring revenue in and supply for the needs of the citizens? So that's a big issue. You know, the land issue, the ownership of the land, you know, should the feds control it, should the state control it, how does that transfer take place, should that transfer take place, and so that's a big issue. You know, the water rights are a huge issue that happened last legislative session, and will continue this session as well, and so I think those are the three things, as far as a lot of social issues as well that are coming down in light of what President Obama has put forth just this week and the burden on the local schools. So that's going to be a big, huge issue that we as a state need to take a look at.
Okay, thank you. What would you consider to be the most important?
I believe probably probably going to be one of the major drivers of this coming session is going to be infrastructure funding. There was very, very little that was funded last time, if any, and I think county and local governments there's a lot of projects, roads and bridges and sewer systems and basically operation and maintenance projects around the state that need funded. I think that's going to be how we fund those and at what rate we fund those is going to be a discussion. And I want to dive in a little bit further on your question about how can we do better for our economy, I believe is that the way you worded that, or?
Make government smaller.
No, that was the first question.
What were your priorities?
Okay, okay, thank you. The priorities, I think jobs in the economy are huge every session, but I think coming out of the recession, and the economic downturn, I feel that, and then with the oil, kind of the downward trend in the oil boom in eastern Montana, I think the jobs in the economy are going to be very big, and we need to do more. One thing that I would propose is maybe, something I would be really willing to look at, maybe offering or coming up with some sort of a tax credit for companies that want to move here and create manufacturing jobs, or maybe some high tech or whatever, but putting people to work I think is very important. I would also, in fact, I was working with another legislator last time, and we're going to eventually try to float something and get some support for maybe companies that will hire Montana graduates, whether it's from a trade school or a college, but making some kind of incentive for companies that hire Montana graduates that keep those people in Montana and put them to work. And I think by doing that, that would answer a couple of a big what ifs for our economy and getting things rolling again and putting people to work at a living wage job.
Thank you. Hey, Ken, you have questions for our candidates?
Yes.
And we'll start. Right here.
What is your opinion on the open carry or the concealed weapons law?
I have a concealed weapons permit, so I mean, I guess my opinion is they're valuable. I wholeheartedly support open carry. There's places for concealed carry and places that I guess for one, let me explain. If we're going to allow people to carry guns in bars, I just assume be able to see that gun, and rather than having somebody conceal it, or in other places, I mean, I just assume know that it's there, than speculate whether it's there or not. But as far as concealed carry, yeah, I think it's a good idea. I've even supported legislation in the past where for permitless carry too. But anyway, I've got one in my wallet. The permit. We're in a school, remember?
Yeah, I support both of those. I have an issue with the concealed carry. I have a concealed carry card, and I enjoy the freedoms that I have with that. But I think that is just by nature an infringement on our Second Amendment right. And so, the Second Amendment says, your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But I think having to pay money and get a permit is a little bit of an infringement. Although in today's society, where there are, a lot of people that are scared of guns, carrying open sometimes causes more problem than carrying concealed. And so, we're an open carry state, and we have the freedom to do that. Sometimes just something out of sight is out of mind, and you have it there if you need it, and nobody knows the difference. But so I lean toward how can we, if you want to carry concealed or open, then maybe we shouldn't have a permit system at all and just go by Second Amendment rules and just give that freedom to everybody.
Thank you. Ken, do you?
Got one more? Please tell us how you would vote on issues calling for private ownership of public lands in Montana. That's a good.
Private ownership of public lands.
Yes. In other words, privatizing our public land, state, BLM, Forest Service.
Well, that's a big issue itself. We've got you've got the federal lands, and it's a big issue of should the federal government give that land over to the state ownership. I don't know if that's the issue you're speaking of, or is it now the state selling off land into the private sector? I mean, that's another. I think they're two separate issues. I think the issue
with the question, I didn't write the question, but I think it's from the federal land to the state
ownership.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think here's the issue, and I've brought this up before, is I think we need to, as a state, and I don't know how much power the state legislature has to deal with the feds, but when the federal government takes ownership of land, they make a payment called a payment in lieu of taxes, a PILT payment. All right, and so if you own land, you are taxed on that land per acre, and it's at a certain rate. Well, the federal government comes up with a formula, and they make that PILT payment. Well, that PILT payment formula, which interestingly enough, they make the formula, so they decide how much they're going to pay, is less than what you're paying per acre in taxes. And what has been happening for over 30 years now is the federal government has not been making their full payment. And so even though it's less money per acre, they're still not making their payments. In Beaverhead County, there's 2.4 million acres of that county that is owned by the federal government. They're making something like 35% of their formulated payment. And so I think the state could have some jurisdiction to say if they want to come in and own more land, we say, no, you can't pay for what you have now, you don't get any more. But at least on a state level is put some pressure on the feds to say pay your bill or get out of town. And so I would look for any way possible to have the feds turn that land over to the state so that we could use that land for the resources that are there. It's going to be a big issue. We can't do it immediately, but look for ways to secure that land back.
Thanks. Thank you.
Jeff?
Okay, I'm going to come at this from two different angles. First of all, I want to be abundantly clear that I do not support the fee title purchase of land by public entities, taking it out of private hands and off of the tax rolls and out of production. But as far as a public lands transfer, I do support the notion of it because of the local control factor. I do believe that a state agency probably has they probably have a desire and people in place that could do a better job, but where it becomes problematic is adding 30 million acres of federal land to the state's management. Number one, you're growing government exponentially in the state. Number two, who's going to pay for, say, fire mitigation on that? Millions and millions upon billions of dollars that it costs to fight fires on federal lands just in Montana, that the state would have to come up with that. Another thing is grazing fees. We all know what it costs to graze an animal unit on state land now. Well, if all of a sudden everybody that had federal permits was having to pay that amount, we'd be looking at 4 or 5 times roughly to graze on state lands, to graze on the same piece of ground you've always grazed on that would now be under state ownership or state management. That's a conversation I don't want to come back to this district and have with anybody. And I guess the The last thing is there is a huge amount of public resistance to this notion. There's pockets of support for it, but there's a lot of public resistance, and maybe for good reason, but it's probably not a notion that I'm willing to support at this time.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question from the same candidates.
Okay.
One, Ken?
Seeing as how recreation and agriculture are the big economic leaders, what is your solution to the state of Montana ceding to the water rights to the, I think this is Kootenai Salish, yeah, compact.
This goes to me first.
Everybody understand the question?
Yeah.
Comes to you.
I'm gonna, I did support the CSKT compact, and I did it simply because, number one, I heard from probably 250 people that are water rights holders. There's a gentleman in this room here that I heard from, sitting in the front row, that asked me to not support it, and there was one gentleman from Dillon, but everybody else asked me unanimously to support that because of the protections built into that for local water rights holders. So I did support it based on that. There was a lot of discussion that went into that. I sat on the compact commission early on in 2009 and 10. I was not part of the negotiating team on the Salish. I worked on I did do some negotiating. I was part of the negotiating team on the Missouri breaks. But yeah, I mean, it was another one of those things. Is it everything that everybody wanted? No. But again, I talked to colleagues of mine that also have rights that irrigate with compact water, and they were in support of it. So based on the way it affected my people at home, that's the reason that I supported the water compact.
Thank you. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts, I'm at a little disadvantage because I was not part of the legislature and had privy to all the interviews and the time that was in there, but the part that I hear raises some red flags for me. You know, the supporters of this compact, you know, one of the big reasons that a lot of people supported it were saying, well, we're fearful that we're going to be in a lawsuit if we don't make this compact, that the tribes will have a lawsuit against us. And I think anytime you do anything based out of I'm scared of getting sued is a bad way to make policy, because anything you can do, you can die from or get sued from. And so, I mean, your whole life you'd be running scared. The other issue that I find troubling is that the House rules actually had to be changed in order to have this compact passed. And there's several gentlemen up front here that were part of that rule change, that it couldn't pass according to the House rules on its own merit, and so the rules had to be changed in order to make this compact pass. And so that raises just some red flags without knowing all the details, just those couple of things. It's like, well, if it was such a good deal, why couldn't it pass on its own merit? So I don't know if it's going to come back to the legislature this next year. It's in a lawsuit at this current time, and so if it does come back, then I'll have a chance to, you know, if elected, I'll have a chance to look at it and study that more. But again, with those concerns that I have, take a look at those. If it doesn't come back, it's going to be a tough deal, because I think it's leading to a lot of loss of water rights for ranchers around the state of Montana. And so, what do we do at that point? So, you know, if elected, I'll take a look at what we can do and get those water rights back and protect what we've had for a long time.
Thank you. Does that wrap us up? Okay, I want to thank both Jeff and Dale for your good response to the audience questions, and thank you for staying within our timeline. Make Pat's job easy. I just got a very important news announcement, important to all of us.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for all of you coming out tonight and taking part in the political process. It only works because people like you get involved. It's not a spectator sport. I'm going to start by respectfully asking you for your vote on, in June, if you haven't already cast your ballot. But regardless of who you vote for, please get out and vote. It's that important. It's the one thing that we have in this country that we can make incremental change, and that's the elected people that you want to see to make those changes. It's been a great ride over the last 8 years. I do enjoy serving. I hope we've made a positive impact on all of your lives, and I again respectfully ask for your support in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to follow Jeff on and thank you all for coming here and putting up with us through this evening. And again, it was 18 years ago that I moved into this area, and during that time I've enjoyed the consistent conservative values that have been represented by the senators that have served this district. And the reason I ran and filed was I wanted to see that consistent conservative leadership continue. And again, I consider Jeff and myself friends. We differ politically, and that's one of the areas I think that we differ on. I think I'm a little more conservative and want to see what we've enjoyed, at least for the last 8 years. I want to see that continue, and that's my reason for filing to run. During my 18 years here in this area, most of what I've done has been serving people, and most of that service has come without a paycheck. It's been volunteer work. I love to serve people. I'm not afraid to learn new things. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty, learn about people and help people out, and I want to continue that on in the Senate. And so I'm not looking to make money. I don't think there's money in the politics in Montana. It's a lot easier for me to stay home with my wife and my children, but to go up to Helena is going to be a little disadvantage for me personally, but I'm willing to do that because I want to see that the conservative values be represented up there to represent you. So my whole thing with my campaign is putting you first. Like I said, I'm not going up there to be a politician. What I want to do is be a representative of your voice up in Helena, and so that's my whole theme. So I appreciate if you could give me a chance. If you need more information, StewartForYou.com is my website. Gives all the issues in my life story, and I would appreciate your vote on June 7th. So thank you for your time again tonight.